So is that how a bird knows which mate is theirs?
I think it has a lot to do with their communication between each other, in my opinion.
UV range, so that can affect what they're seeing.
Preference and all those sorts of things, identification, mate preference.
Because I always wonder how, like a troop full of normals, how they know which one to do, you know?
Right, we see like yellow and gray and white, and they see 25 more colors.
And actually, they can also distinguish individual voices as well, too.
Yeah,
There's a lot of that
for sure.
for that, so.
For sure.
And movements, and I mean, it's a whole package, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, a color
I have
is,
a question.
yes ma'am, yeah.
As I told you, I'm new to bird. I read in one of the bird books I bought that birds don't see color.
Huh. What book is that?
Huh?
I would say if it was probably what they meant was they don't see color like we see color would be my guess. It's possible. If they meant black and white, most birds see
They
a wide
definitely know
range.
color.
We have an African
Okay.
gray that our behavior trainer students will, she can identify different colors. She'll
We'll do-
respond
yeah.
differently to like
Red,
purple,
red,
red, and blue, and she'll actually
blue.
respond
And
to
when-
what that
yeah.
color is.
And she'll pick the blue one, so,
Plus with the different colored,
feathers.
the
Oh, the pellets.
pellets.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
You know they
Yes.
know colors.
We had a Quaker who would refuse the banana yellow colored zoo cream. Ate everything else in there and the bowl was left with the yellow. I'm like, alright, so.
And we have some that don't like to step on purple
True.
scales,
Yes,
like
purple.
purple mats, or blue mats, or yellow
Yes,
mats.
yes.
It's bird specific, but some of
Yeah,
them.
so I would say birds, the citizen parrot birds can definitely see color. I would say probably all
Okay,
birds.
and this was strictly a cockatiel bird book. And I
Well,
paid
they were
money
wrong.
for that.
You should write them. Write them
I'm
out
gonna
there.
do that. I
I
am
bet
going
you
to do
do.
that.
This is Gwen. Gwen is stepping on a weigh scale so we can get a weekly weekly weight. Wow. And yeah, he loves it because he gets some yum yum, and the student gets to interact with him, and it's just a win-win situation. So yeah, there's our purple mat. The African Greys hated the purple, and it took me a year to figure that out. So I was just thought they were being shy, and then we switched it to a light aqua blue, and they're like, oh, we're on here.
How
So,
weird.
and even between species, like the same African Grey, they have each bird is their own individual. I mean, they truly are. So, the Schubot Center historically has several birds that have been, papers are out there for the whole gene sequence of the bird, from the scarlet macaw, 4 other types, species of macaws, bobwhite quail, whooping crane, and sandhill crane. We also have a member of the Schubot Society, Donald Brightsmith. He is a conservation biologist, and he goes down to Tambopata, Peru, where the clay lick is. And right now, one of our students who went through our program is down there working for him with the macaw nest box program. He's, because of the trees and the deforestation, he's set up some synthetic nest boxes out there, and they climb up and they'll get the chicks and measure them and weigh them and then put them back in. So his program is very heavily based on the scarlet macaw. So yeah. And that's down there on the left is a muddy floor because the rainforest gets wet. Yep. Yeah. So infectious disease.
I don't wanna
One of
fall
our
there.
infectious diseases. I'm gonna kind of skim over this, but she's got a beautiful paper out that we can pass around and look at. And she's working on another one actually that's imminently to be submitted. Infectious disease and avian-borne virus. So Don Brightsmith, he sent out to all the vets and a lot of AFA members, what is the one big pet, problem that we have out there in the United States? And avian-borne virus came back, so that's why the center has decided we need to study it, we need to try to make a vaccine for it, a diagnostic test. And so we do have a diagnostic test, sample submitted for $75, either a blood sample or a fecal sample. Dr. Joe at the bench will test it, and then I report it back. And then Caitlin's been working on rapid testing, papers on how the virus stays in the environment. Is it dry, wet, chemicals, that type of thing. And she's heavily working right now on a vaccine for this virus. So because this virus, have you heard about avian coronavirus before?
I've heard about it recently, but
Like we train our students because our large parrot population many years ago were donated to us because they heard we were studying this. We train the students that you need to know when a bird's not eating, right? Well, we train our students if a bird is ravenously eating, because that means the bird is starving. He's throwing all the food into his crop and it gets bigger and bigger, but this virus it affects nervous tissue and it won't let the motility of the food go down. So that's how we train our students when we feed is look, are they eating or are they not eating, or are they eating like they're starving? So we need to have good eyes on when we interact with our birds.
Are you finding much of that locally? The avian virus?
Locally, like out in the wild?
Yeah.
No.
we'll hear.
Cockatiels, I've heard most cockatiels carry it.
So avian coronavirus is very difficult to, and that's one of the reasons we're studying it, it's difficult to kind of diagnose and things like that because it's what they call an intermittent shudder. So
Like
birds
herpes.
who are infected can actually be completely asymptomatic for decades, maybe their entire lives, and be
Yep.
perfectly fine. However, once they start to develop clinical symptoms, which is usually related to either GI problems, so they won't eat, or they'll pass seeds, and it started as McCall wasting disease because birds would eat and get thinner and thinner and thinner because they weren't processing the nutrients and they were just passing the seeds through. So that's one thing. But they also noticed it can also affect the nervous system because it hits the nervous system first, and you can get blindness and seizures and motor issues and things like that. And once they start to develop that, we have no treatment for it, there's no cure for it, so it's kind of managing quality of life, and eventually usually either one of the symptoms or quality of life degradation to the point of euthanasia occurs for the birds. But because they can be asymptomatic and show no signs of it, but shed this virus in their feces and their urates and in dander and all this kind of stuff, you can have birds who are infected that you don't know, and they can spread it to neighbors or down to chicks. That seems to be, some people think that's the more common way, is that vertical
I think
transmission.
they've shown it in macaws.
They've shown it there's several species they've shown vertical. They've also shown horizontal though,
I
like.
see they're eating disorders in the young birds, those ages there, more so than the adult birds.
Yeah, it hits the young and the old.
And that is one of the things I think we see is that if you have an immunocompetent, healthy, it's like the flu. The young people and the older people are usually hit harder by the flu, whereas between the ages of 20 and 45, 50, you might get sick, you might not, little sniffle and you're fine. Seems to kind of be the same thing that we see. If the birds get it when they're very young, they often develop, and I think have worse symptoms, and if they get it when they're older, which probably has to do with the immune system being weaker in each of those instances. And so, yeah, we're very much working on how does it pass, and so the thought is with birds, there's probably a large portion, I think the recent research was maybe 20 to 30% of the parrot or pet parrot population probably has it. Whether or not we know that they have it is a completely separate thing, because it's something most people don't test for unless your bird is showing some sort of clinical sign that makes it necessary.
Waterfowl too is about 15.
Yeah, it's more prevalent in geese and swans, and
So there's two different strains, waterfowl and a citizen.
So wild bird population, full wild bird population, we're actually screening through, we work with the BRTC, which is a group on campus that gets a lot of bird carcasses from window stripes and things like that, and they prep them for like museum collection type setups where you get the wings and just the birds. And so they were just tossing the brains, so I asked for the brains from the preps, and one of our undergrads, Matt, he's at this point screened, I think we're at 700, 800 brains.
We get the birds from all over, like Dallas Fort Worth.
All over Texas, all different species, so we've tested everything from hummingbirds up to vultures and hawks and owls. And what we see in the wild population is a roughly, probably 1 to 2% rate of the coronavirus that we look for, which doesn't sound like a whole lot until you consider how many birds there are, and you realize there are, several billion birds. So it's that sort of a thing.
So are one of your goals, since you can't see the symptoms, will there be you call it a vaccine, so that all birds can be fed or drop by drops, at least the vaccine is given to them like we would.
So where we're at right now is we have a prototype vaccine that we ran a pilot study with that is showing some promise. So our next step is a larger scale study, and then hopefully moving out into kind of like a clinical trial where we would talk with people, and we're starting with birds though that have no history of avian-borne virus and don't test positive either by feces or by blood, so they have no antibodies, which to us says they've never been exposed either. We'll start there, and then we will move into looking at if our vaccine is it successful in birds who already are infected? Can it help prevent that movement from asymptomatic to clinical aspects and keep things a little under control? We're also looking at, can we look at other treatments which might help with some of the issues they have if they do become symptomatic, to try and, again, slow down any disease progression to give them the best quality of life we can for as long as we can, kind of thing. But the vaccine is the big project right now, because we really want to get that one done and out, because again, if you can vaccinate them young, and at this point, our vaccine unfortunately is looking like it might have to be more of like a yearly or every 2-year kind of thing, but we're like, that's step one, is just getting something.
It's hard to develop a vaccine. It takes time and years. The COVID vaccine came along because it was already, the development stage was already there, and then we just broke on things and said, let's do it.
And we're a little limited right now. I'm working exclusively in cockatiels, which is part of the other reason we need our cockatiel population to maintain numbers and things like that, so we can continue doing the work. But as you know, every bird is a different species. So we run into the issue of the dose I give the cockatiel may or may not be an appropriate dose for a macaw, and so there's still a bunch of those little things we'll have to figure out, just in terms. But so far, the vaccine has been perfectly safe in the sense of if we give it to the cockatiels, even at a higher dose than what we ended up with, they're fine. They don't show any adverse reactions to it, and pilot study data was good. So now we just have to move into bigger set to make sure that it's a robust, repeatable response, and then hopefully move it out of the laboratory and into more practical, real life
And we're
settings.
beefing up the colony as well, because the teaching, I guess I forgot to say, being part of the vet school, last 2 years we had about 20 students interested in the zoological techniques course. And a component of that course, besides the tortoises and the rabbits, is birds. And so we have 25 of our birds for one vet student and one bird to learn how to handle, how to draw blood safely, that type of thing. And this year, Dr. Hoppe said 44 students have signed up. So the increase has, and interest has occurred in zoological medicine, so yay. And that's also, we are the place that we can maintain our teaching colony, and these birds get handled maybe twice a year for that lesson, but it helps us keep records on health. So if someone gets sick, we can say, oh, the weight was this 2 months ago. So they aren't handled, but like
Depends on
three
what's
times
going on.
Yeah, for teaching, so.
It depends.
But not only infectious.
If the bird's diagnosed with that,
You kind of watch and observe. There's been some anecdotal evidence of some NSAIDs being somewhat useful, so non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. They've seen some evidence of that being useful, but that's primarily, I think, for GI-related issues.
Cockatiels are pretty hardy though, that if they can get past the symptoms, they usually recover.
Yeah,
Well,
it's usually, unfortunately, the ones who get symptoms, if they go downhill,
They go really fast and
go
it's bad.
pretty quickly.
But,
And I don't know neurologically if we've had any with neurologic symptoms
That's true.
that we've had
That's true.
recover.
they can test for that currently, right?
So the symptoms or the virus?
The virus.
So the best we can do right now, because it's a neurologic, it's a virus that prefers living in the nervous system. So unfortunately, the best way to test is with a small piece of nervous tissue, so brain or whatever, which obviously we don't do with live birds.
No.
So we do feces, cloacal swabs, and we'll test with that. Usually though, because they do shed intermittently, so we've had some birds that are positive 1 week, test them the next week, they're negative the next week, they're positive the week after that.
Well, that's
It's-
frustrating.
It's
Very
incredibly frustrating. And we have some birds who never test positive by cloacal swab, but they're like, if we test their organs, every organ we test is positive.
But
So,
the serum, so if you want to know in a week or two, serum and swabs will be tested on our pointing birds, and we can tell you if your birds have been exposed or not.
Yeah.
so the other thing we do is, we have a blood test. We're, I think, the only ones in the country at this point, or one of the few labs in the country that runs, what's called an ELISA, which basically we look at their antibody levels, and we compare it to a known kind of, this is just the normal level of antibodies birds have, and then we have our specific ABV probe. And if they have a high level on that, then we're like, okay, we can't tell you if they actively have it just by that test, but we can tell you that they've been exposed to it. It's the same way, like if you took the COVID nasal testing or some of those things where they tell you, you know, that sometimes they'll use like chicken pox as like a control to be like, this chicken pox number is through the roof, so you've had chicken pox or were vaccinated for it.
But you're fine, so.
You're fine, yeah.
And that's the same for birds, they're fine.
But, so that's the testing we run with it.
If we would have a bird that would die, you all could do an autopsy? Or
Yeah.
deal with the brain, I know that.
Yeah, yeah, well, and it's hard too with avian bordervirus because it is neurospecific. We have had birds where that were ABV positive, but the only place we actually found it in their organs was actually in the eye, which is part of the nervous system. The eye is part of the central nervous system, so it makes sense, but it's just not where people would think to look for things. So typically in my studies, when I run organ analysis on birds, we look at 7 to 9 different organs to check, which is the brain, spinal cord, the eye, the crop, the proventriculus, the intestine, the cloaca, the kidney, the heart. And we kind of use those as like, these are the most common places it's gonna be. If it's not in these places, they didn't have it, they were clean. We also do look for changes in those areas at the cellular level that our pathologists know to look for, because there's certain specific things that happen that they can see. But yeah, we can definitely necropsy them and look. That is a service I think pathology offers.
Do you accept samples for testing from vets?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
We
I have an
routinely-
avian vet and I know she sends things off sometimes, so I just wondered
What's her name, oh yeah, we receive primarily, the vet clinics will send it to us,
if.
the samples, and then we
either
send them back.
feces or blood, and we get it at this point I think from all over the U.S.
Right, and it takes our laboratory, our mighty laboratory about 10 to 15 days to get back.
Because there's only 2 of us.
Yeah, so, because there's a lot of stuff, other things going on, but yes, yeah.
Have y'all heard of the condition droopy eye? Cause you were talking eyes and how you test, and I don't know a lot about that, but they say it ties into a symptom of other things. And I thought, well, I wonder
That could even
if
be
the birds
cardiac
that
even,
have
maybe, yeah.
droopy eye, if they're prevalent, or is that a sign of getting?
So we do, like, one of those things, when I'm doing my research and I have, because again, we bring undergrads and vet students into this, so we train them what to look for in symptoms. And some of them are obvious, like constant regurgitation, seizures, not being able to move appropriately, et cetera. There are other ones, like, where their eyes will get very kind of droopy and squinty and things like that. But that's not necessarily exclusive to avian bordervirus. The eyes being kind of droopy and squinty is a very common way we've seen that birds kind of show that they're not really happy with-
Overall, yeah.
over, like, either in their body, the environment, or something.
Throughout the
Along with
aviary, we get told, if it's a squinty eye, we get told.
along with being like very fluffy, you know, it's another one. We tell them if they're really ruffled up and they're kind of squinty, they're probably not feeling well. But that could be, if they're one of my birds, it could be infection. It could also be if they have some sort of bacterial infection or something and they're just not feeling great. So it's a lot of the symptoms, unfortunately, with avian bordervirus. There's many other things it could be. Even the proventricular dilation, which is what they originally called it, proventricular dilation disease, so the proventriculus would enlarge because the food wasn't getting digested, and so basically it was passing through and enlarging. But even that, there's other GI issues which can cause that. So it's one of those where it's really difficult. It's really annoying how difficult it is sometimes, but we're working on it. But yeah, we're hoping to try and develop a test that we can actually, that's more in line with like the COVID test that people were doing in like offices or whatever. That's more like a pregnancy test where you get like a rapid 2, 3, 5 minute response. And so far, it's not as sensitive as I would like. So we're still kind of figuring out some of the bugs with that. And again, being a laboratory of one person, I kind of have to prioritize, and the vaccine is at the top of that priority list at the moment.
Well, and including other infectious diseases here at the Schubot Center, Dr. Hamer also does wild bird catching. And if you see this black, it's a mist net that's going across here. So they'll set it up at the end of the, or they'll come out super early, like 5 a.m., set it up, the net will raise up the poles. So the poles go really high up. They'll raise this up, and the birds won't see it. It's so fine. And then they get caught. And so then she gets them. And this is a golden crowned woodpecker, or gold fronted.
Yeah.
Woodpecker, sorry. And what we do when we capture wild birds out there, she did this about 10 years ago, and she still takes classes down to do this, and she looks for things on them. Things that, I don't know if you can see on these two birds, right here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right there, but she looks for ticks.
Those are ticks?
Yes. So these ticks are flying into the United States. They're on these migratory birds, and they're carrying viruses that we don't have in the United States. And so why is this important? Because it's a zoonotic disease issue, because the birds themselves could act as a reservoir. The birds could act as that little feeding vessel for the ticks to feed and get off. And birds are obviously close association with humans, and then birds are vehicles for movements of pathogens and vectors. So that's why she was really looking at it. She goes down to the Gulf Coast with students, and this is kind of her setup of how she does it. But there's a paper out there that, and she's a master bander as well. United States official master bander, so she'll, any bird she captures that doesn't have a band, she'll put a band on it. She will remove the ticks. She'll collect a little blood sample, and she does measurements too. And there's one really gorgeous tick right there. And then she has calipers, and she'll do measurements and everything. And then release. So.
And she doesn't do any sedation?
Nope, no sedation. It's better on the bird that way.
Yeah.
Faster, because birds in the wild they don't have the luxury to recover on a limb, because that would.
Also with small birds, sedation is very difficult to get proper dosing because everything is based off of big per kg and weight, and these guys, it's like holding air.
So she's caught many different species of wild birds. She has a paper from 2015 about like some of the ricketsias that have been found coming up. 8 tick species, 6 are exotic, so that means 6 are not even from the United States. So and the current research right now, she just had one graduate student graduate. She's gone back to Michigan to keep on studying this. She's collaborating with the Los Alamos Research Laboratory in New Mexico. And they have a new, because they found about 1/3 of the wild bird population that is healthy, that appears healthy, has been exposed to pesticides. She's doing neonicotinoid studies in turkeys. And the turkeys are in like Iowa, several states that they're going to do this study in wild turkey populations to see. The Wild Turkey Federation wants to know what the pesticides are doing out there. So Dr. Hamer is involved with that, with Dr. Meredith Anderson in the picture here. So that's a big, new special component of research that we're doing. We also, we do try to breed our birds in-house, and we got this new toy this year. I just thought I'd throw that up there. We have a student, he's putting his the digital camera inside the nest box to check out the chicks and the
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah? Okay. Well, for us, it was new, like, oh, wow. that's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
usually I'm sitting there going, hello.
Yeah, that's us. That's the only thing.
And then attempting not to get like attacked in the face by one of
Right.
the moms who's very upset that I'm even looking at her.
Right, and then I have like the environmental paper from Dr. Mincio, from Caitlin, and then I have Dr. Anderson, Meredith's paper on her pesticide exposure, detectable in over 1/3 of the wild bird samples. So you're welcome to look at them, or, but I think, would you like to look at them when we come back and we
Yeah,
can walk
sure,
around the aviary a little
sure.
bit?
I
Yeah?
have a question for
Oh, yes.
Caitlin.
Yeah.
You mentioned several times about seizures.
Mhm.
That's something we see in our line of birds and showbirds,
Quite a bit.
or seizures from time to time. It's 95% in the males, and it's only usually after hen on. Is that a symptom of what you've been talking about?
I don't
What
think
causes
so.
that? And why is it mainly in the males?
So my best guess, and this would be a completely educated guess, because we actually don't see seizures as often in cockatiels specifically. Most of the neurological symptoms I see when they're infected with avian virus are more in line with physical tics or so not like a full-blown seizure, but some sort of like trembling or shifting or trouble walking or things like that seems to be more common. In terms of overall seizures, because we do have some Quakers who have seizure issues as well, there's probably a genetic component to it somewhere in there. The fact that it shows up more in males would probably make it linked more likely to the different male-specific chromosomes. Because we see that in humans all the time. There's diseases that are more prevalent in males, like color blindness, for example, because it's linked to the Y chromosome, as opposed to being, or the presence of the Y chromosome makes the recessive more likely, and so those sorts of things. Most seizures I've seen in the birds we have here, when it's not anything else, it's just stress. It's just stress related, because it happens usually after or during some form of handling. And so I think just like people, there's probably some birds that just handles stress better or are more used to it, or there was something else that played into it that led to it just being too much. And they unfortunately have a seizure, because we have that happen sometimes with the cockatiels on occasion. Because again, like I said, we have the vet students learn how to handle them, and every so often we'll have one cockatiel who has a seizure. And sometimes that's the only seizure they have. Like the rest of the time we handle them, they are perfectly fine, but that one time.
I would love to know if it happens in the wild, because I have this little theory that if you're a predator out there and you're about to get this little bird and the bird starts going, the predator's like, oh, you're not a healthy bird, I'm not gonna eat you. So
I've heard, yeah, the fright, I think they call it the fright response. It's for defensive purposes.
Yes. So I'm not saying that it happens all the time, but
It's one, with those it's kind of a mix, because it's kind of a twofold
Yeah.
issue, because it's one, it could scare off your predator, or it just makes you easier to catch.
Yeah.
or it's like an anxiety attack, so yeah.
Because if it's a full-blown seizure for some of those birds, they can't snap out of it, like, like the birds that fake having the broken wing or whatever to lure them away, they're like, I'm fine, and fly away to escape.
I've seen it.
Yeah. So if they're faking it, 100% predator response at that point, but if it's full-on,
Well, these don't fake it.
yeah. My guess would be
Yeah.
stress and possibly to some degree selective breeding. So often when things are selectively bred, you see it in dogs, you see it in that. In birds too, specifically when people tend to breed selectively for coloration
Right.
and then keep it very thin. Whenever you do selective breeding, often we're not aware of what else you're selecting for that might be associated with that specific coloration or that specific streamline. So you think about like bulldogs and some of those other dogs that have specific medical issues due to the fact that they're bred for that specific look or that specific selectiveness. And so that would be my guess.
Those ones that have quarantine now, they're all going to be eventually tested and.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah, that'd be great to get the results and see what's.
Yeah.
Because it is one of those things, we actually had a group from Taiwan who's coming back this summer, who was here last summer, who is also looking into developing a vaccine for avian-borne virus.
And the
And they
Germans,
said,
and there's a German group.
there's a German group, and the
We wanna beat
biggest
'em.
problem, we're ahead of them, because the biggest problem most people have is finding a clean population of cockatiels. And that's the Taiwanese group, they're like, we have stuff ready, but we just cannot find
Well,
enough cockatiels that we're
another
confident
question I
about
have
being
for you.
clean.
You have a clean environment out there, you have a clean flock now.
Yeah.
how do you get birds that are affected, how can you test for that if your birds aren't carrying any of that stuff? I mean, if everything's clean,
Oh,
where do you get your specimens from
well, we got a lot of samples from the clinics.
Yes, so we get a lot of
Okay.
samples from clinics, from vets, and
We have a
with
lot
the
of-
research we do have to infect some birds on purpose. And we know because we took the original virus that we grow in the lab in like a dish, it came from a macaw that died from it, and so we basically harvested the virus and proliferated it out, and then had to put it back into a bird to show that it produced the same disease and the same thing to prove that it was, and
It's Cox postulates, or
yeah,
Koch's
yeah,
postulates.
Koch's postulates, but yeah, so we have like all of our testing and all of our stuff is based off of birds that we know were infected, either via us doing it intentionally or through, pathology and stuff from the birds we've gotten from clinics and things around. So we work with Dr. Hoppus up in, she's based out of.
Dr. Sharman Hoppus is our board certified avian veterinarian. She has a clinic in Grapevine and a clinic in San Antonio. We
Been to the one in
love Dr.
Grapevine before.
We love Dr. Hoppus.
We always plug
She's
Dr.
also,
Hoppus.
she's
She's
also like
amazing.
the Baylor Bear vet. She's amazing. I was just talking about her, so,
And so, yeah, so we work closely with that, so we have tissues and samples that we 100% know are that, so.
and she would have been here, but she's not in the country right now. And Hammer would have been here, but she's with her graduate student in San Antonio capturing bats. So they also love to meet people like this, but they busy ladies.
And we've also sequenced it as well genetically. That's the other way we're 100% sure of what we're dealing with, because we sequenced the whole virus. It's actually not that long of a virus, which is really annoying because it causes a lot of problems for being a very short piece of RNA.
Let's go look. I think.